So afternoon, everybody. I'm Gavin. I'm the CEO of MedTech Syndicates. We're an online capital formation company that focus on clinicians investing in medical devices. We have a great panel here today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, Dave, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, Dave Uffer. I'm the Managing Director of Trinity Life Sciences. It's a 1,200-person strategy consulting firm. I lead the MedTech practice. I've been myself in MedTech for 35 years. The first 25 years was corporate and strategy and M&A, as well as investing under corporate ventures, and then went to investment banking, strategy advisory, venture studio. So my day job is consulting, and then I also invest on the behalf of a $6 billion family office.
Hi, everybody. My name is Soyoung. I'm a general partner of 1,004 Venture Partners. We are the global early growth stage fund, venture capital, to invest in transformative technology to support healthy aging. So we are looking for companies in the three pillars. One is proactive health and wellness, and second is independent living and caregiving. Our third pillar is next generation health infrastructure. If you fit in this criteria, I'd love to talk with you later.
Awesome. Omid, Akhavan, I lead Anthro Ventures, our family office. We invest across medtech, mostly late clinical through commercial stage medtech, very subsector agnostic. My background, bioengineering, management consulting, strategy and business development at Becton Dickinson, and then I was at MVM Partners before leaving to focus on our family office.
Perfect. So the title of our talk is How We Use Startups Unknowingly Violate Funding Laws, okay? It sounds scary. It's not. What we want to do is not stop people from pitching, but we just want to educate you, and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And the laws go back to 1933, but have been updated recently in 2012. So Obama brought in the Jobs Act, and basically it was before the Jobs Act, you could only have accredited investors investing in companies in the US. So the Jobs Act allowed for general solicitation. So there's going to be a couple of rules that we go through. We're going to go through them very quickly, and we'll just do a little comparison. But we'll then discuss the pros and cons of all of those regulations, and we'll take questions as well, okay? So with the Jobs Act, it did introduce equity crowdfunding. So it introduced a thing called Reg CF. So Reg CF allows you to raise $5 million, and it allows for a non-accredited and an accredited investor to invest at the same time. But one of the other things it did was brought in Reg A, which is you can raise up to 75 million, but there's two very cool things about it. One, it can have a liquidity event of up to 30% for your early stage investors. And the other thing is it pre-qualifies you for an IPO, which we don't encourage companies to jump on an IPO, but it's a comfort for investors knowing that you're pre-qualified for it. So at an event like this, we always get the question, well, what's the difference between pitching and selling securities? And really, it's just the language that you use. There's no magic thing about it. It's if you are pitching your company, you're describing it, you're talking about milestones, you're talking about future capital needs, and you can quantify that by how much you might need. The opposite side of it is selling securities, and that is stating that you're raising $5 million at a $20 million valuation. At that point, you're offering securities. If you're asking someone to invest, it's the same thing. There's a difference between if you know them versus you don't know them. So general solicitation versus friends and families. But if you're providing any information that allows somebody to invest in your company, there are laws between what you can and can't do. So let me just bring up Reg D. So Reg D 506B and Reg D 506C are the two regulations that are most important for people who are raising money. Reg D 506B has been around since 1933. And essentially it is you can only sell securities to accredited investors. When the Jobs Act came around, they brought in Reg D 506C. You're still selling to accredited investors, but you can do general solicitation, which means if you don't know somebody, you're still able to do that general solicitation, ask them if they want to invest. But the difference is they have to prove that they're an accredited investor. In Reg D 506B, they have to be an accredited investor, but the barrier to proving that you're an accredited investor is essentially ticking a box. You can have 35 non-accredited investors in that, but once you have one non-accredited investor, you have to prove accreditation for everybody. So it's not really worthwhile, okay? So who can invest? What is an accredited investor? So essentially somebody who has an income of over 200,000 a year, or has net worth of 1 million, not excluding their primary residence, or any entities that have over 5 million under management, okay? So here's the kind of guidelines in and around Reg D 506B. General solicitation is not allowed, so you have to know the people who you're going to. It's unlimited in terms of you can raise as much funds as you actually need to raise, and you can take in 35 non-accredited investors. We don't recommend that you do that, but it is self-certification, and then you just have to fill in a Form D. It's best for friends and families, but it's very quick. There's less verification, so you can start raising under 506B without making any submissions to the SEC, so it's very handy. When Reg D 506C came in, it allowed general solicitation. It's only for US accredited investors, but you actually have to prove accreditation, okay? So the difference between ticking a box and proving you're accredited is you have to get your lawyer, you have to get your accountant. There's a number of ways. There's about 8 different ways you can prove your accreditation. But on a site like MedTech Syndicates, we have to prove that everybody is accredited coming in. You still have to fill in the same Form B. You don't have to have a broker-dealer, but it is it's kind of looked at as a favorable thing to have. But it is a little bit slower than a 506B. So I mentioned that 506C and B are only for US investors. So if you have to take an investment from OUS, you basically do what is called a Reg S. A Reg S is much easier to do because if you have any US investors, you fall under SEC and FINRA guidelines. If you're OUS, there's only about 3 countries that require for the accreditation, okay? So if you're doing OUS and US investment, you just have to make sure that they're separate offerings. So one of the best things about the Jobs Act was it brought in Reg CF, okay? So Reg CF is, for one of a better word, it's crowdfunding. The fancy way of calling it is online capital formation, and that's the one that we use. But what's beautiful about Reg CF is you can take in funding from anybody globally into your Reg CF offering up to 5 million. And you can have accredited and non-accredited investors. You do need a broker-dealer, and that is to make sure that the KYC, the Know Your Customer, and the AML, the anti-money laundering, is done. But there's also a bad actor check and due diligence. So it's actually very quick to do. You file your Form C and you're ready to go, okay? So with MedTech Syndicates, we do use Reg CF, but we only do it for clinicians, okay? So when the panel gets going, we will talk about the difference of retail investors and clinicians as well. The last regulation we'll talk to you about is Reg A, Reg A+, okay? So Reg A, again, general solicitation. You are allowed to take in funds globally. It's up to 75 million. There are forms that you need to fill in. It is more expensive in terms of the due diligence that you'd have to do before you start because you are raising such significant amounts of money. You do need a broker-dealer to do that. And you also get the pre-approval for an IPO, okay? So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour of regulations, okay? We will take questions later on, but I just want to talk to the panel a little bit about this, okay? So in terms of fundraising that you have been involved in so far, has it been the majority Reg D 506B, or has it been a mixture of the different regulations? What about you, Dave?
I've seen it across just about any one of the ones that you presented today. More so crowdfunding for very early stage companies that didn't want to go through their angel networks and the friends and family route. And then on the Reg D ones that are a little bit more structured, maybe even had some representation helping them navigate those waters.
Okay. And what about you, Soyoung?
Yeah, in my case, I see definitely most of VCs are taking 506B. The reason is we definitely have some kind of big sources of the fund, and we like to have some limited LPs rather than too many people in our cap table. So that's the one reason we think we like to go to 506B, and also it actually reduces the expenses like tax K1 issuance or administration, and also legal fee would be much simpler and cheaper in our side on the fund.
Yeah, great. And it actually brings up follow-on questions for both what you've said. So how about you, Omid?
I've done both. I mean, I've also done crowdfunding through AngelList just as an individual investor to support other companies in healthcare, outside healthcare.
Okay, so I've talked to a number of different VCs, family offices, and the feelings between Reg CF are often very mixed. Some people, they don't mind it, and some people are going, oh, I don't want to have a lot of unsophisticated investors or unaccredited investors in the cap table. When you look at a deal that has a Reg CF completed and has an SPV, let's say, how do you look at that? Does it put you up or down on the investment, or is it something that requires a little bit more due diligence?
For me, look, been around medtech a long time, and in this day and age, we see a lot of your institutional investors that have kicked the can down the road a little bit, so they're going a little bit later stage. And we do have this gap in the very early stage. Again, if you don't have a very strong individual network, or you're not able to find angels directly through the network, I think Reg CF is fine. At a later stage, as we had discussed, it gets a little bit messy, and I do like SPVs and angel networks that will help you bring in many. You get one check, you have one organization on the cap table. When you've got 132 lines on the cap table, it gets a little bit messy for the later rounds, and there's complications that we could talk to, but there make some complications later on for sure that you want to clean that up as you get to your Series A, B, even especially later on.
Yeah. How about you? So if you see Reg CF raise on a cap table that you're looking at, how does it put you?
So as a matter of fact, I don't really care. If you can have access to the fund, please take it as much as you can. That's what I think. But as David mentioned, that once you go to the Series C and D and E, who knows how many rounds you will go. When big VCs come in, they may concern about this kind of cap table list. There are so many people under the cap table. They usually not very happy about it. In my case, I go to the little bit more early stage, so we are a little bit more open and flexible. But later stage, when they see that as a kind of too much cumbersome and then too much cost expenses, you may need to be able to answer why we have this one. But if you can minimize the list on the cap table, I think that's actually very good strategy to show that how organized you are in managing your cap table.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Soyoung. I think for me, what's more important is governance. So as you think about, when you have to go get shareholder approvals, where's the decision making? Is that concentrated? If it's an SPV and there's a single point of contact that's signing on behalf of all the shareholders, that's easy. But if you have to now go and get, requisite approvals of, 30% of the cap table, that's, 50 individuals, I think that becomes difficult and onerous. I've had one company where, they'd raised a bunch of money from individuals and doctors, and getting the deal done was difficult. But then now that, I'm a major investor, actually our shareholder approvals are a lot easier because it's, we need 7 signatures instead of, 27 signatures, right? So it just goes a lot faster.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we talked about this briefly outside as well. In terms of all of the companies that are at LSI or at various different conferences get approached by people who are willing to help them to do a fundraise. And this can be really good, or on the other side, it can be really bad. Have you got any advice for the companies in the room on, how do you vet somebody? in terms of if they're saying, we can help you fundraise, what would be the questions you would ask?
Well, I mean, I think the easiest thing is, are you a registered broker dealer with FINRA, right? That's your starting point, and that's very clear cut, black and white. They can take a percentage of whatever they raise and do a success-based, milestone-based compensation. But then I think then you have these kind of in-betweeners where, it's an advisor, they're a consultant, how do you get paid, and then you start dancing around the lines of, broker-dealer laws. And I think, when was it? Maybe 2018, 2019, FINRA came out with it was I guess a guidance document on what unregistered broker dealers are, and if you're a finder, which is really you make an introduction, you could take a small amount, but it's always better to steer clear of any percentage based compensation. But
unless you're a broker dealer,
right?
Yeah. What about you, Dave?
Look, I've been approached many times, and very intently. I worked as an investment banker under a license of my firm, but I'm not a registered banker, nor do I care to be. And I'd helped a lot of people to raise capital, but outside of a success fee compensation. And that's where people try to skirt that line. And I think if people are skirting it, they're dancing too close to the line, that's a little bit of a signal. You must be FINRA registered to take a success fee as a percent of the capital raise. It's very clear. And you can have somebody come on as an advisor to the company. You can pay them a fee for that, but then you're not success-based. So it's a scary world out there when you're looking at that. Do you put the capital in? And if you're going to do that, what do you check for? Everybody knows people. It's not hard to have a Rolodex and know a lot of venture funds and people with those venture funds, but successfully raising capital is a completely different story. A lot of people say, I know a ton of people, but they can't raise capital, and they haven't, and it's not easy. So just be very careful when people come and tell you how much capital they've raised, and show me the ones that you've actually led and completed, and then you're open to talk. Then you can work out the structure.
Yeah, that's good advice. It really depends which regulation you're using based on how many accredited investors do you actually know, and can you list them. But let's see, is there any questions that you guys would like to ask? I think we have a mic going around the room, so let's start off over here.
Yeah, Marijn van Os from the Netherlands, Skin Vivo. Of course, always raising as a MedTech company. We are approached, basically the whole team is approached continuously by brokers. They say they have a big Rolodex, right set, the point you're basically discussing. Sometimes I go into the discussion, but nowadays, mostly I throw away the email because I don't believe the story. I think it's kind of hooks. And when I talk to them, I say, the only thing I want to do is a success fee. So do you take chance and the risk that you are able to raise money for me? When yes, when you're so convinced it is yes, then you should get a share of the raised capital. When you want to have a prepayment, it's a complete no-go for me. But do you see also in the US a lot of companies trying to approach starters? Because in this, we are overwhelming. Every week we get a few meals for that one. It looks like a kind of organized hoax almost.
You want that, Dave?
I see a lot of folks that'll go out there trying to lead a capital raise. It depends how structured they are, how large they are. We see a lot of bankers here that will take these when they're interested in being your M&A, or even some that are underwriters will take you through the IPO. They're not so interested in leading the capital raise, but they can, and they want to do that for the relationship and prove that they can be successful with you. Some of the brokers who are more specialized just in capital raise, I don't think any of them would do that if they're FINRA registered outside of at least a small retainer on a monthly basis. And if they're going to do it purely on success fee, you have to at least see their last 3 to 5 milestones, tombstones, and then at least have a call with a couple of the companies that they've raised capital for, because everybody will want to take it on, but can they actually successfully in today's environment lead that capital? And talk to the people. How did they raise it? What were the timings that they promised you? What did they actually lead for process? How much of it that was left on you? Did they just drop off venture firm with you after a phone call, or did they actually market this and lead the discussions? There's a lot we can get into, but you want to know what you're paying them to do.
I think I'll add one thing to that, is that as you think about bringing on people to help you fundraise or help you in your journey as a startup, right? Fundraising is one aspect, right, of that. And, I think successful fundraise comes down to, what is the problem you're solving? What is the team that's solving it? How good is your technology? How good is your IP? I mean, it's a multifactorial decision that an investor makes. As I think about the process of fundraising, what is important is to have, a clear story with a polished deck, with a data room ready to go. And, nobody's going to do that for free, right? And so if you as the CEO or you as the management team is able to do that and capable of doing that, amazing. It's always good to get outside feedback on that. And so at times, what I have found with some of my portfolio companies is, they'll bring on an advisor. It's a strategic advisor who will help, refine the story and refine the deck. And typically those people are paid, on a retainer, right? Maybe there is a bonus, right? I don't know, $20,000, $50,000 if you get a successful fundraise of, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. So it's basically a flat fee basis. And that, I think that is a structure that works, but I don't, I think you get what you pay for. So people who are just out there, hey, we'll just take a percentage and get no retainer, they'll send 150 emails. And that may also, I get all those emails all the time where it's like, the random broker dealer shopping 5 company. I've watched these emails come in. I've never responded, but and I'm like, okay, wait, why is this company using this person? Why don't they just email me directly, right? And so I think you also have to think about the brand that you're building, and what happens if you don't pay someone to do the work and they're out there on success based. You have to worry about.
That's a huge point, Omid. That remember, any representative is really an extension of your brand, and you're going to be viewed upon how they represent you as well. And if you work with an organization that really isn't credible, they're not representing you well, and you're even maybe moving from 1 to 2, your third advisor, you're going to look very bad in the marketplace. I had one company asking me, David, we want to use one of these 3. Who would you recommend? Here are the terms they're setting. And one was so non-standard in our industry. It sent me so many red flags. I said, do not use them. They went with them. They promised them the world. They got nothing done. They were really upset. And like, you're not listening to the people who are advising you. And now you went with somebody really bad, and now you look bad and you don't look credible.
Yeah.
I'd like to add one more thing there. So as Omid said, we receive a lot of emails from the brokers, a lot. What we gonna do is just gonna pass it most of the time because we don't know them. So ask them if they know the investors directly. And at the end, we don't invest in you because of the broker. We invest in you because of you and your team and your technology. The people who really, really need to bring everything on the table is you, not them. So ensure that you know everything, what they talk, what they actually represent, what kind of brand they brought to the table. You are the one who will take the responsibility. And of course, it's great to get some help to prepare all this data room, all kind of things, but you should be the one who know all of this and then present it to us precisely and accurately. If you don't feel that way, we really like this company, so we actually kind of decide to go to due diligence, but this person probably don't understand what they're talking about versus what I read there. It gives a lot of red flag to us. So I highly recommend that actually you are the one who takes the responsibility and reliable on here. They can help you to connect with some people. That's it. And then think about that. Is it worth to pay that much money?
Yeah, that's great advice. We have another question over here as well. Perfect.
So forgive the slightly idiotic question that will come up, but someone made the comment earlier about fake investors, and I don't know about other people in the room, but I've been getting a lot of approaches from people who look like legitimate brokers, but when you Google, actually, they just registered the website yesterday. So it's certainly something to watch out for. The idiot question is, when does a European or UK company fall in scope of SEC? Is it if you take a check from an American investor? Is it if you're an American corporation? Sorry to take us back, but it would be really helpful to have perspective.
So the minute you take money from a US investor, you fall under SEC and FINRA guidelines. Okay. But there are a number of exceptions. If it's not a public offering and somebody came up to you and said, I really like what you're doing, can I invest? There are rules in the 1933 Act that allows you to take on a few US investors before you have to do a Reg D or make your disclosures. So there are times where you can use what's called 4A2, and that's just for a number of investors. So if you have American investors on your cap table and you're going, oh my God, I haven't disclosed, it's fine. There are times where that is allowed. You just have to check with your securities lawyers. Is this okay? Like if you've got 100 people and you've raised 50 million, you're going to be in trouble. Whereas if you've raised maybe 150 to 250 and you've got a couple of Americans, you just say, we raised that under 4A2. Okay. Any other questions first? Okay. I just want to thank everybody on the panel. I think they are a wealth of knowledge. If you have any questions after the panel and you want to come and ask us individual, if you're afraid you might be caught on camera saying something you shouldn't, come up to us afterwards. And I'd just like to thank everybody on the panel. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.